Hello class, today we're going to be going through leaf anatomy. It's the second part of several presentations to get through the 303 POS, which is describing plant parts and functions. So we're going to go through leaf parts and functions pretty quickly. If you need to stop the presentation at any time and look at what's going on, that's fine. There's going to be a PowerPoint that you can go through, but not all the information is on the PowerPoint. So you might want to stop and get the information from this video. Leaf anatomy, we'll get started. So first thing we'll talk about is functions of leaves. Obviously, the number one function is photosynthesis. Photosynthesis happens the most in leaves, the green leaves, although they can happen in green stems if they're herbaceous. Transpiration happens out of leaves. Leaves, water getting pulled up through the plant. Part of the reason that water is able to move in the plant is because it's getting sucked up, sort of like siphoning gas. When the water leaves the stomata in the leaf, it gets pulled up through the stem into the leaf. It collects sunlight, and it is also used for gas exchange. Those same holes that allow transpiration to happen out of allow gas exchange to happen out of. So those are the functions of the leaf. Very important functions. These are the questions we're going to answer today. Different types of leaves, arrangements, veination, different shapes, margins, tips, bases. So the first thing we want to do is we want to identify parts of the leaf. And what you're going to find out is my picture looks different than your picture. And I did that on purpose because I want you to be able to take what I'm talking to you about and telling you about and put it into your notes. So the very tip of the leaf is called the apex. So find the tip of your leaf, A-P-E-X, apex. It's the very tip of the leaf. Some leaves have a round tip, some leaves have a pointed tip. They're going to have different names. We'll get to a note sheet that tells you that. The next one down on mine, not on yours, is the edge of the leaf. So the very edge of the leaf, sometimes it can be serrated, sometimes it's smooth, sometimes it has little tiny teeth, sometimes it have hairs on it. That's called a margin. M-A-R-G-I-N. Okay, so the edge of the leaf is a margin, and there are different types of margins. You will use those for identifying plants. Okay, this bracket out here that's pointing to this whole thing right here, it's called a blade, and they call it a leaf blade. Leaf blade, or just blade. Okay, so this whole surface it's pointing to is considered the leaf blade. Okay. This is pointing to all of these little tiny veins that are running through the leaf. So we'll put that as a vein. There are multiple veins, so I could draw a line to multiple different places. Right there's a vein, right there's a vein. All those are veins. Okay. Important thing to know is there's usually one main larger vein, and that has a special name. In this plant, it's running directly down the center of the leaf, which generally is going to be the case. So this one is called a mid, M-I-D, rib, one word, mid-rib. Okay, so the main vein, mid-rib, think about, I don't know, your rib. It's the main vein that supplies all of the other veins. It is going to be lots of times connected to this right here. This looks stem-like, but it's actually part of the leaf. So the leaf is the leaf blade and the petiole. So we'll spell that for you. Okay, P-E-T-I-O-L-E, petiole. Okay, the petiole is what connects the leaf blade to the stem, and the stem is right over here. Okay, there's a little bit of a bud right here where that petiole attaches to the stem. That has two names: axillary bud, and some people will call it a lateral bud. Okay, auxiliary or a lateral bud. Okay, that's more so a stem thing, which we'll talk about when we talk about stems and parts of stems. But it's important to know that when there's one auxiliary bud and one petiole, that's going to tell us something, and we'll get to that later on. Okay, right below where the petiole touches, there's this sort of funny little structure right here. It's called a stipule. Okay, some of them are bigger than others. The stipule was sort of a protective structure that when the leaf opens, now it's sort of just hanging out there, so it's not really that important, but it was sort of a protective structure of that leaf prior to opening. If you compare it to our flower anatomy, it's like a sepal. The sepal protected the flower bud. Okay. Right here, this area of the leaf, and I'll circle, it's where the petiole attaches to the leaf blade, is called the base. That sort of makes sense. The only other thing that I want you to be able to identify is not really part of a leaf. It's a secretion. It's a sort of like a sunscreen that leaves have. It's called cuticle. If you've ever seen C-U-T-I-C-L-E. If you've ever seen an evergreen leaf compared to a deciduous leaf, evergreen leaves tend to have more of a shiny coat, and that's that cuticle coat. Okay, cuticle is going to sometimes cause them to be a little bit of a different color. A Colorado blue spruce looks blue because of the cuticle color. Okay, so cuticle is like a sunscreen. It's an adaptation for those plants for protection from the sun, protection from the cold, and those are the parts of the plants. Quite a few, not as many as flowers, however. So you're going to want to go through this, make sure your picture, like I said, is different than mine. Make sure you're getting the right spots in the right places. Listen to how I defined what each of them were, okay? Look which one applies to the ones that you have. All right, we're going to move on. Parts of a plant. Now we're going to talk about deciduous versus evergreen, broadleaf versus narrowleaf, simple versus compound. So a deciduous plant is defined as a plant that loses its leaves during the dormant season, winter, and grows a new crop of leaves in the spring. Hopefully you probably had a good understanding of that. Maybe not an official definition. Go ahead and write that down in your notes. And an evergreen plant retains foliage throughout the year. It does shed its leaves. If you've ever been in a pine forest, there are definitely pine needles on the floor of that forest, but they don't shed them all at once. Go ahead and look at the pictures I have up here on the board. Which ones are evergreen, which are deciduous. Okay, so this one, what would you say? You said evergreen, you're right. If you said deciduous, you're right. This is our English ivy. What is English ivy? It's an evergreen. There's some type of holly. It's an evergreen. That's I believe a beech leaf. That's a deciduous. And over here is an evergreen. One of the things I want you to realize is not just coniferous trees, trees with needles are evergreen. We have many broadleaf trees, shrubs that are evergreen as well. So don't get that mixed up. All right, broadleaf versus narrowleaf. Broadleaves are said to be hardwood. They have a leaf blade. Okay, so we already talked about what a blade was. Narrow leaves tend to be softwood trees and have needle-like, scale-like, awl-like, or linear leaves. If you look at this picture, my question to you is, where would you split what is a narrow leaf versus what is a broadleaf? Between what two numbers do you think we split and make it that? If you pick between 3 and 4, you're correct. So right here, these are narrow leaves. All of these are different broad leaves that you can find. All right, simple versus compound. There's a place for you to draw an example of this. But simple, its definition is there's one leaf blade to one auxiliary bud. So one leaf blade petiole attaches where an auxiliary bud is. That's why we had to show you an auxiliary bud for that. The second one, a compound leaf, has 2 or more leaflets, and the leaflets do not have auxiliary buds at them. There's only one auxiliary bud for the entire what we call rachis. So I'll show you that. So go ahead and get that definition down. Pause me if you need. Here's a picture. So a simple leaf, we've got a stem, an auxiliary bud, a petiole, and a leaf blade. Okay, so one leaf, one petiole, one auxiliary bud. Okay, the compound, we have a stem and an auxiliary bud, but on this, what you would call petiole, it's not called a petiole now, it's called a rachis. Okay, there are 5 different leaflets. Okay, there's not an auxiliary bud at each of these spots. So there's one auxiliary bud here, and then all of those leaflets coming off. Okay, so simple leaf, compound leaf. Okay, important to remember what the difference is. Here we have a simple leaf. Here we have a compound, compound, compound. Okay, this is a pinnately compound, which we'll get what pinnately means in a second. This is a doubly compound. So this is a leaflet, that's a leaflet, it's doubly compound. It's like a mimosa, if you've ever seen a mimosa tree, doubly compound. Make sure you get that drawing. Do a little bit of a review. Deciduous versus evergreen is loose leaves versus keep leaves. Broadleaf, we have hardwoods and softwoods. And have a leaf blade versus needles and things like that. Simple is one leaf blade, compound is many leaflets. All right, let's talk about leaf arrangement. Okay, so leaves can be arranged differently on plants. We've probably talked about this when identifying plants, something that's opposite versus alternate versus whorled. So an alternate plant. When I think of an alternate, I think of the telephone poles that had the stakes in them, and the people had to climb up them prior to those nice little bucket trucks. So if you look at this picture over here, right here is the stem, and there's a petiole with a leaf, 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 a petiole with a leaf. Okay, they go out like this. Okay, so if you think about that telephone pole, there's stakes that come out of it like that for the man to climb up. Okay, so at each node, okay, and a node is a place where something comes out of a stem, there's only one leaf coming out. For opposite, the way I remember opposite is I think of a ladder. If you are going up a ladder, you can step with either your right foot or your left foot, and there'll be something there for you to step on. Okay, there's 2 nodes or 2 leaves per node. So here's the stem, and then I've got a leaf here and a leaf here. I've got a leaf here and a leaf here, leaf here and leaf here. Okay, so you can see the difference. The final one is whorled. There can be more than 2. So 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10. Okay, it doesn't matter, however many leaves per node, and they're coming out. This isn't exactly quite right, but a spiral staircase is sort of what I think of. That goes up. This diagram shows you a whorl. There's a leaf here, a leaf here, a leaf here, coming out from the same spot or node. That's a whorl. Okay, so that's leaf arrangement. We can talk about identifying plants using leaf arrangement. There are two plants that look very similar. That's boxwood and Japanese holly. If you look at their leaves, they're both evergreen. They're both very tiny, fine textured plant. And it's sort of hard to differentiate between the two. But if you look at the leaf arrangement, you're going to see that a holly, all hollies are alternate, and boxwoods are opposite. So that will help you identify the difference between hollies and boxwoods. Put that in your noggin. Keep that one for when we're going through some plant ID information. All right. Venation is something that you can use to identify whether a plant is monocot or dicot. There's one of these venations that indicates two venations that indicate dicot. And when I say venation, it has vein in it. Well, actually it doesn't. But it's looking at the veins of the plant. How are the veins arranged on the leaf? Okay. So there are 3 different venations. The first one would be pinnate. Okay. That's when there's one primary vein that goes out from the petiole to the leaf tip, which we call the apex. Okay. And that primary vein is going to have branching veins off of it. Okay, so I want to change the color to yellow so you can see. This is the main vein running up to the tip. Man, this is not working very well for me here. Okay, and then there's veins branching off of that main vein. Okay, that would be the definition of pinnate. Okay, they can branch differently, so they might branch like this and go out and do funny things like that. That's still pinnate. Okay, they don't have to be parallelly branching off of like that picture. As long as there's one main vein that they branch off of, that's pinnate. Okay, the next one is palmate. And when you think of palmate, think of palm. And when I say palm, I mean not like the tree, a palm of your hand. Okay, all of your bones for your fingers come out from the base of your hand, and that's pretty much the definition of palmate. The veins, there's a couple main veins that are going to start right here at the base of the leaf, and they're going to branch out. If you think of a maple tree, that would be an example of that. So here's the base of this leaf where the petiole attaches. There's main veins running out that base. Okay, so I think of a palm of your hand. Okay, your bones are coming out from the base of your hand, palmate. Okay, both of those two, pinnate and palmate, are dicot. Okay, and that says that here, dicot. If you see a leaf and it has one of those type of veins, it's a dicot plant. Okay, the next one is called parallel. If you have taken math class, you know what parallel means. That means veins that are running next to each other vertically and they do not touch. Okay, so if you've ever seen a grass blade, if you've ever seen a corn leaf, okay, the veins run like that. They don't touch, they run parallel of themselves. Okay, that is the monocot venation. Okay, put that little tidbit of information in your head. Dicot, monocot. We'll practice those here in a second. The leaf shape or overall shape is a common feature used to identify plants. Their description and illustrations In your notes, you can look at these: lanceolate, spectaculate, ovate, oval, cordate, lobed. All of these are different shapes. And when you see a lobed plant like this, whoa, okay, a pinnately lobed, I distinctly think of Quercus, which is a scientific family genus name for oak. And when I see palmately lobed, I think of either a maple or what's the other one? A London plane tree. So shape will really help you do that. When I see cordate, I automatically assume redbud, okay, because it looks like a redbud leaf. Margin, we talked about in a part of a leaf. Margin are the outer edges of the leaves, and that can be different types of margins. It can be smooth, it can be serrated, it can be lobed. There are leaf apexes that are different, so the very tip of the leaf, and then also the bases can be a little different. That's all I have for leaf anatomy. I hope you can go through this PowerPoint, get all the notes, and make sure that you understand exactly what it is to identify all those parts and functions of a leaf.